So I'm going to talk about a very strange topic, right? It's at least it has a strange word called steganography. I don't know how much you guys are acquainted to the word. Does anybody know what steganography means? Show of hands. Some, not all. So when I was putting together this presentation, I was thinking maybe I'll talk about the history of steganography, what steganography is. So I'm going to talk about the Romans and Julius Caesar and all that stuff. Super boring. Now nobody's going to want to talk about that or listen to that kind of stuff. So instead of that, I look for different examples of steganography, more modern, a little bit more current and more fun. So I don't know if you know this story. This is about our friend Arnold Schwarzenegger, the governor. And a few years ago, he showed up in some Democrat party unannounced. That didn't fall very well, so they heckled him. They told him if a liar, lots of stuff. They insulted him. Now, what did the guy do? After the next veto, actually the next law that they were trying to pass, he vetoed it. Not only did he veto the law, he also sent this text as the official reason. Right? I'll read it to you because I realize it's very small. It says, to the members of the California State Assembly, I'm returning Assembly Bill 1176 without my signature. For some time now, I have lamented the fact that major issues are overlooked while many unnecessary bills come to me for consideration. Water reform, everything is major issue my administration brought to the table, but the legislature just kicks the can down the alley. Right? It looks like I'm rejecting it. Now, everybody was very outraged because there's a hidden message. I don't know if you guys see the hidden message there. If you see the first letter of every line, can you see what it makes up? You see Fuckyou. That was for the guy who actually heckled him back there in the Democrat dinner. So this is a hidden message or an example of a hidden message nowadays. So that happened relatively, I think, a few years ago. So not that long ago. So this is a modern example of steganography. It's trying to hide data within data. So trying to put a kind of data that is unexpected in this context into another data, that you would expect. Oh, this is a letter. Actually, it was a secret message. And I'm going to put this into the virtual world, right? Into the computer world. And this is what Arnold was actually telling Tom Amiano, which was the other guy. So in the virtual world, what this translates to is normally putting hidden messages into pictures, for instance, right? So in a picture, if you notice, at the left-hand side, there's the complete white. Complete white is an FF 255, complete white, saturation of color. Now, if you move that bit a little bit down to the left, so it's a 254, 254, so slightly grayer than white. Human eyes don't see the difference. So you can use that difference in order for you to encode a bit. So instead of putting complete white, you put slightly gray, and instead of a 1, it's a 0. So you can encode 1 bit of information. If you go further down, that's a 252, just for comparison. You cannot see the difference. To the human eye, that's complete white. That way you can encode a lot of information. This is the picture. It's a classic picture of a model. It's from Penthouse 1972, November 1972, Playmate, not Penthouse, Playboy. So this, for some reason, I have no idea what the steganography geeks have used this picture always to show differences in encoding data in pictures. So when geeks started to do that, data scientists starting to do that, they encoded information into this particular image, right? If you notice, at the left-hand side is the real image from the real JPEG. At the right-hand side, it's encoded information. There's a hidden message there. it's completely impossible for the human eye to discern whether there's encoded information or not. If you look at the histogram it tells you how many colors of each type, right? You can see the color distribution, it's slightly spiky. If you notice, there's a little bit more spikes, which means that there's extraneous information, but you wouldn't be able to discern. I mean, from the naked eye, there's nothing strange there. So this is the way to encode information. This is the way that Stego geeks have been doing it. Now, at the end of the day, criminals are going for the money. So this is very pretty. This is very good. You know, JPEGs, yes, good. But the guys just want the money. Right? So I'm going to be telling you, by way of example, how different malware or malware writers, or at the end of the day, there's persons behind this malware, are encoding information and using steganography in order to make money, in order to encode information to be to fly under the radar so that they're less likely to be detected. But they're not the only ones, right? Criminals are very common, they're very frequent, but they're not the only ones who create malware. Who else creates malware? Any idea? Nobody? These guys, right? Those guys, yeah. Those guys create malware. And what do they want it for? Normally it's going to be for spying, for trying to get information from their targets. So these guys are going to find steganography incredibly useful for their purposes. There's been malware. I'll give you examples later of malware, state-sponsored malware that is using steganography nowadays. Who else is using malware nowadays to attack? These guys. Well, actually not these guys, but you know, terrorists, hacktivists, you name it, right? Guys who want to smear, create smear campaigns to defame, to destroy the reputation of their targets. So again, these guys also find it useful to create malware and to be more difficult to detect. Now, I'm going to go for the examples. Remember that I'm going to be putting, by way of example, showing steganography as it's been currently used in malware. If you were here in the previous session, Voltrack, it's one of the malwares that uses steganography. I did not go for Voltrack for some reason. Sorry, Raul. Well, I told you that Arnold's going to help me. Arnold's going to help me. He's hiding something there, you see. So let's go for it. The first one that I have here, it's Lurks. Lurks is a downloader. In the same way as Voltrack, it just downloads stuff. Now, what does it download? Actually, it has an icon, its own icon. And if you look at it closely, these are from two samples. If you look at it closely at the picture, at the edge of the picture, you can see that there's like a little bit of garbage code, right? There's something, some pixels there that don't belong. And the right-hand side, again, the same thing. It's the side of the picture, in the side of the frame, there's some extraneous information. What is that? It's actually code. So what the malware does is treats that as code. It's not data, it's real code. It's just appended there, and it runs it, and it continues its routines. That's the first one, being able to hide malicious code within other code. Now you might think that's not super useful. In the same way that you can encrypt, like in layers, like Raul was telling us, you can also just put it there. What was the difference between encrypted code and this kind of code? Not much, really. I mean, there are probably Stego geeks that really like to use steganography, not a lot more than that. As by way of example, Lurks also is very interested in that it has this kind of CNCs. It goes to the CNC and it downloads. What does it download? It downloads this picture. That's a very ugly picture, right? It looks like white. Yeah, but we know that white, you can encode stuff in white because our eye doesn't discern between very close hues of white. Now, if you look at this picture, the upper part is the header, but the lower part, it's the white. It's actually not white. If you look at the FFs and the FEs, of course, when FF is a 255, 255, 255, complete saturation of white. But FE, it's a 255, 255, 254, slightly gray. What we actually encode here, it's a URL. It's encoded a URL, which is the next step of download. So it downloads here and it continues the process. So you see how Lurks both encodes code within code and URL within a picture. So that's one example. We have another one, Stegaloader, much more complex than this. Stegaloader actually downloads a picture, and within the picture, you can find like real bits and bytes of an RC encoded piece of code. So inside there's another DLL which it puts into memory and runs. This is the stuff I really when I was putting together this presentation, I thought it's really not worth showing lots of bits and bytes. So I'm just showing you the picture. Now, the thing about this one is that when you are, as a virus analyst, when you are seeing all this exchange without looking at the virus, you only see somebody or some piece of code trying to download this JPEG from the internet. And that's it. That's all you see. So any device trying to see the exchange of information would only see a JPEG being downloaded. We have no idea what's inside. Actually, there's code inside. There's a DLL. This is a DLL download inside that image, which is scary in itself. Now, the second part, this was encoding code. Now, you can encode also data, right? Configuration data normally. So the next stage. This is Arnold trying to encode data. Told you it was going to help me. So have Zeus VM. This is part of the code, and I promise it's no. I have more. I have more code. I can't promise that. So you have a download of a JPEG, and you can see where it downloads it from. So it's just a JPEG download. Pure and simple, nothing else, nothing fancy about this. So it's a JPEG. It downloads a JPEG, which is this beautiful sunset. Again, any device in the way would only see the JPEG download, and that's it. So you wouldn't know what it is. It actually decodes RC encoded. It decodes to something that it's appended. That's at the left, it's the original image. It's a view of the image. At the right-hand side is the modified image. At the very end, it has a little bit of stuff appended. It's encoded with RC4, where you decode with, this is the contents in ASCII. Now, when you decode that, it's a regular Zeus configuration file. So it has actual configuration data within the image. So it downloads an image. It looks like an image. It is an image. But appended to it, there's something encoded that is more stuff. It's configuration data. So this is Zeus. Another example, and this is in the mobile domain, that's very interesting because this was a malware that got installed promising that it was a porn application for Android. Now, I know you're interested in that, but I wasn't allowed to show you, so it's pixelated. But in the icon, it's a porn icon, right? In the icon, inside, there's hidden information. So if you look at the icon, there's just pure BMP data, just pixels. And there's a marker called text, software, and some stuff that looks like garbage. It might be pixels. No, it's not. It's not pixels. If you look at the code, that's the beautiful thing of Android. It gives you the code, right? So you look at the code and you see what it's doing. It's looking for a marker and it's doing some stuff. Does anybody know what this piece of code is doing? Do you recognize the XOR? It's just XORing with a very ugly key. Yeah, that key is just XOR. Nothing fancy. It's just a very long key. Now, if you XOR that piece of code within the icon, this is what you get, just configuration data. It's SMS. It was texting SMS to premium numbers, so there's nothing fancy about this one. But it was encoding within the same icon, within the porn icon of the Android application, it was encoding all the configuration data. So if you look for it, if you're trying to look for the configuration data from an analyst point of view, you wouldn't see anything. It's into the icon, which is interesting. And the third part, now we know they hide code, we know they hide data, and they also hide CNC communication. And yeah, you were waiting for it. So it was Arnold is trying to stop communication here. So Morto, very interesting. You know what this one does? In order to see where the CNC is, instead of having it hard-coded, It makes a DNS connection. It asks a certain server for a certain domain and only the text. So if you make an A request, it doesn't work. So it doesn't exist. I don't know what it is. But if you ask for a text, so what's the text associated to this domain? This is what you get. Very strange, right? Why would you get that? Now, the virus, after doing this DNS request, gets that data, decodes it, and it decodes it to this. So then the next stage is that one, makes the second one. Now, it got the CNC from the text description from a domain. And remember that that domain does not resolve normally with an A. The A just does not resolve, only with a text. The text has been it's been used for something different. It's not to encode information. So this is a way of steganography, right? You would never expect that in this channel to have this kind of information. If you're looking from a device point of view, looking at this communication, you'd have no idea that that channel is being abused to encode information that does not belong there. It completely does not belong, that text there. So this is one way of encoding information within a CNC. But there's more. We have Banker. How does this one get what the next stage is, where the CNC is? This is a very creative one. It's relatively modern, March 2015. Now, it goes to Pinterest. It goes to specific pins. And if you look down, actually the malware looks down and looks for that, right? We look for the comments. And somebody commented that stuff. What comment is that? If you look there, that's a very strange comment. It's 4 numbers divided by A, B, C, and D, right? It is an IP address. It is actually the CNC. It goes to Pinterest. It looks for specific comments. It knows that it's an IP address, and it puts together the whole URL for the next stage of the CNC. So it's using public sources, just public URLs, in order to look for the next stage of the CNC download. Now, in the same vein, very similar to this is Janicap. This is January 2015, very similar to this, but it does it with YouTube. It goes to YouTube, specific YouTube videos, and you see down there, there's a very strange comment, right? Our anniversary and with a number. It looks innocuous. It looks like, what is this? There's more examples here, a couple more, a little bit bigger. January 2015, so it's relatively modern. Now, this is the piece of code. If you look at the piece of code that creates this, it divides by 31337, so elite, which is cool. And it creates some special algorithm. It creates an IP, and it just communicates with that IP. That's it. That's all it does. It's actually the same way. That number, it encoded an IP address that is the next stage of download. So it has a configuration data inside to continue the infection process. So it's just encoding information in an unexpected channel. The scary thing is that if you don't know that this is happening, once you know to expect this, then you can contact YouTube, you can take it down. If you have no idea that this is happening, you only see some computer downloading a YouTube page. That's all you see. That's it. Nothing else. Nothing suspicious. It's actually asking for configuration data. More examples. This one, it's Hammer Toss. It's the one that it's state-sponsored, using steganography also in this vein. July 2015, so this is very, very recent. So what this one does, it goes to Twitter, and on Twitter, it looks for the latest tweet of a specific user. Now, the user doesn't exist. Usually, it doesn't exist. Now, the day that the bad guy, actually, I said that it stays sponsor, right? So the country that wants to issue commands to this Hammer Toss malware, it creates that username. Every day is a different username. So if they want to communicate, they create the username and they tweet. They tweet things like that, right? It looks like, wow, a new user just created today. It's tweeting something that doesn't make any sense. Now, the malware knows that that user, today's user, hosts a CNC file, CNC server. So that is the CNC server for today, for the next step of the download of the infection. Now, if the bad guy, if the particular country infecting doesn't want to issue commands, they just don't create the user, don't create today's user. The day that they want to create, that they want to issue the command, they just create the user and tweet. As easy as that. Tweets one. That's what it's used for. Now, what country is responsible for Hammer DOS? Any idea? Did you guys? US? No, it's not. No, it's not. Yeah, Russia. Yeah, it's Russia. According to some antivirus vendor, which I won't name. And another use for steganography is to hide stolen data. Now, I've always been thinking that steganography, so trying to use unexpected channels to put data inside, it's perfect for this. And I haven't been able to see a lot of this. So I forecast that in the future, this is going to be the most useful way for bad guys to steal information. Because if I see that an infected computer, it's sending away, like say, credit card data, then I know, wow, that computer is infected. No, a guy can be sending 10,000 credit card numbers all of a sudden through HTTP. That's very obvious, right? Now, if they use some HTTP sneaky, like putting it into base64 and encoding it into an HTTP request, now that's different. Now we're talking about, wow, I have no idea what it is. Anything that's happening, anybody sitting between the infected PC and the server would be able to see nothing of interest. Now this is hiding data. So this is what happened with VVClip. VVClip, it's a little information stealer from Poland. We know that it's in Poland because it targets specifically Polish credit card, bank accounts, which are made up by 20 digits, so 20 digits altogether. And that's what it's looking for. It's looking for the memory, and it picks it up. So it knows this user is providing some website the bank account to pay or for whatever. And what does it do with it? It has no idea what to do with it. There's no configuration data. There's no upload site. There's nothing. Now, what it does, it sends an HTTP request to a dummy website. So you see that the GET request / some garbage. It doesn't exist. It comes back with a 404, but it's a fake 404, and you can tell that it's fake because it's not a 404 not found. It's a 404 site not installed. So we're creating a new HTTP response here. 404 site not installed, and within that response, there is something encoded, and that something encoded is a new Polish bank account. So then the malware, what it does, it replaces all instances of the users by this one, so that if they have to receive payments, instead of receiving payments to the user's account, it receives it to the bad guy's account. But it got it, again, it got it through HTTP encoded. So you wouldn't expect to have a 404 response. You wouldn't expect it to have any real information, any configuration, because at the end of the day, this is configuration data for the malware to do some stuff with, right? And you wouldn't expect it to be there on a 404 response from a website. So that's another way. I forecast that in the future, this is going to be more. It's going to go more, right? Because I could, for instance, ask the fake website something and put something in the post and completely nonsensical, trying to put information encoded there, and nobody would be able to really expect anything out of the ordinary there. You could use any protocol, not only HTTP. So there's a lot of echo here. You can use any protocol there to encode information. It's at the end of the day, it's putting unexpected information in an unexpected channel. So using a channel that doesn't belong there to put information that you wouldn't expect. Now, what's scary about this? That These examples, I'm telling you because I've seen it, right? But I can't tell you things that I haven't seen because by definition, since they're using unexpected channels, I'm not able to discern whether there's information being exchanged or not. And that's the scary thing. There must be lots of them using all other channels that I'm not seeing because I have no idea what to look for. And that is happening. That is happening. Now, my conclusion is this one. At some point, steganography was really cool. Like something that geeks say, wow, you can put information there. Wow, you can put secret messages into data. You can use any channel to encode information. And if you don't know that it's there, you don't even look for it because you don't know that it's there. Now, the moment that bad guys start using this either to make money out of it or to exfiltrate information or to rob information or perhaps to do terrorist behavior there, then it stops being cool because you cannot fight against it. You cannot, by definition, um, look in a place that you don't expect for something that you don't know it's there. You just don't know. What's the only thing you can do? Start looking for unexpected things. Like if you see that DNS is supposed to be a very short conversation and you start seeing very huge chunks of data being exchanged, that's strange. But you don't really know what's in there, right? So at the end of the day, yeah, it is cool, but it can be evil, right? It can be bad. It can be misused and abused very easily, and we're none the wiser. We have no idea that that's happening. Thank you. Questions?
We have time for 2 questions.
The easy ones.
Sorry?
The easy ones.
Yeah. So, nobody? Everything was clear? Okay.
I haven't seen any. The question I'm going to ask is, have you seen any steganography applied on the cover channels of the malwares that are communicating through the client and the server?
So that's what I'm saying, that covered channels are by definition covered until I see them. And when I see them, then I know it's there. Then I can create a rule and then I can start looking for them. But I expect that there's a lot of them that I'm not seeing because I'm not looking for them because I don't know they exist until the moment that I see the malware. When I see the malware, then I open it, I see the code, or I start reversing the code, and then I see what's happening. Oh, okay, it actually works this way. Awesome. Then I know what to expect. And the next time I see a call to Pinterest looking for this specific string, then I know that they're looking for a CNC. They're not looking at the Pinterest image. So yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of covered channels. I know that I suspect that there has to be, but I don't know what to look for because otherwise they wouldn't be covered. Does it make sense?
Once you find an image like this, how hard is to trace back it because it's posted by a user created from some part of the world? Or
So you want to trace it back to a user?
yeah, you
very
can
different.
trace back who created the secret message.
Yeah, it's very difficult because it depends on what the secret message is, but normally it's either going to be code or configuration, so the data is not going to give you anything that relates to the user. And if you look at where it's hosted, it might be hosted on GitHub, it might be hosted on Pinterest or on YouTube with a fake username. So you can go to YouTube, I wouldn't, right? But the police can go to YouTube and say, who uploaded this? And they can give you an IP. That IP may or may not tell you anything. More often than not, if the guy is smart, will not tell you anything. If the guy is an idiot and did it from the ADSL from home, then yeah, you got him. But normally bad guys are a little smarter than that.
Thank you.
So you're really a bad guy, huh? You're looking for it.
Any other questions? No? Then thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you, guys.